Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. I have been planning to kick off this week's morning briefings with a commentary about Trump's Sneakergate, but that can wait because there's something I wanted to say about The Color Purple and how it became a box office failure. You can just go ahead and file this one under Crime Doesn't Pay, or rather Lying Doesn't Pay. The Color Purple has lost Warner Brothers $40 million. Oh, you had the white media and a number of shea butter Twitter, or is it X these days, who are crowing about how well the movie allegedly did on its opening weekend with no competition, might I add. $18 million. Oh yeah, that's setting the box office on fire. But after that, the movie just sank like a lead balloon. It just fell and fell. Well, it seems making anti-black agitprop, which is what this crap was, looks like it's not as profitable as the white media hoped it would be. This from World of Real, The Color Purple had a budget of around $100 million. It was produced for Oscars but did not make much of a dent once nominations were announced, outside of Danielle Brooks' supporting actress nod. It doesn't help that of its $67 million worldwide gross, only $6 million came from overseas receipts. This should be a lesson to all. Nobody asked for this remake, and if you do embark on such a pricey film, then at least try to hire a veteran filmmaker rather than a newcomer like Blitz Bazawuli. It didn't help that one of its stars, Taraji P. Henson, was quite literally campaigning against the directors of the film. Henson was peeved off that during the shoot of The Color Purple, producers made the cast drive themselves to the set in rental cars. Of course, this turkey failed because it never should have been made in the first place. Steven Spielberg produced this remake. Then again, he directed the original Color Purple back in the 80s, but there was no way he was going to roll the dice on this one. They had to go get some no-name newbie because no director with any skill or self-respect was going to come near this dumpster fire. But for any shea butter feminist out there, I know you never actually read the Color Purple book, but maybe you should read up on what happened to the black girl who Steven Spielberg adopted. She was being sexually violated repeatedly while he was her alleged guardian, and he, to hear him tell it, knew nothing about it. And this is the guy who made The Color Purple, and who all these shea butter feminists are all giddy and happy about, as if he was doing it to do them any favors. This is what we as the black media told you was going to happen, though, if this thing was going to fail. And by the way, to explain the economics of big budget movies to the hood rats, first of all, the production cost of a movie is only half of the movie's actual budget. Because if a movie costs $100 million, or even less than that, you usually have to spend the same amount of money on what they call prints and advertising. So if you spend $100 million to make a movie, you also have to wind up spending another $100 million in order to make enough mass prints to distribute to theaters and to promote it. Those costs have gone down somewhat in the digital age, and for a dumpster fire like this one, I'm sure that even David Zaslav, mental deficient that he is, didn't spend anywhere near $100 million to promote this turkey, but he nonetheless spent tens of millions of dollars regardless, and that's being cheap. So let's go ahead and say that they spent $150 million all told on this movie, soup to nuts. As Matt Damon explained, during a theatrical run, the studio only gets 50% of the box office take, and that's just domestic. It's even less for international. So if you spend $100 million to make a movie, you have to earn $300 million to make a profit off of it. Even if you take out prints and advertising, you still got to make $200 million before you break even, and that's just domestic. Not to mention that overseas receipts are, for a well-balanced movie, usually about double the domestic box office take, or at the very least, your international box office is supposed to be equal to the domestic. This flick didn't even come close, so it's a failure across the board. And I gotta tell you, it says a lot about how these studios think that this is what they decided to put over $100 million into. First of all, whoever's idea it was to make a Color Purple remake, the studio should have fired them for even suggesting it. Secondly, whoever had the bright idea to make this a musical, that person should have been fired. Out of a cannon. Musicals almost never make money. And thirdly, whoever thought The Color Purple needed a $100 million budget, that person should have been dipped in gasoline, then fired out of a cannon. This is why Hollywood is in so much trouble. These executives are just making movies for themselves. They greenlight whatever gives them the jollies. And I get a kick out of the refugees from Shea Butter Twitter who got butthurt about my tweet on this. They look at the Oprah Winfreys and these other sellouts as being avatars for themselves. Now, nobody is saying that this movie reflects on black women. Nobody said, oh, see, this is why black women don't make money at the box office. Nobody said that. Black women haven't been hurt by this film's failure at all. However, the angry black man-hating crowd, the ones who look at stuff like this as being avatars for themselves, they're humiliated by this because to them they drank the Kool-Aid and they actually did what the white media wanted. They took what was clearly divisive white media propaganda and they praised it and lauded it and tried to make it a hit. Well, it seems there's not enough hood rats out there to pull off that hat trick. And for the mental midgets out there who are actually saying this movie's just telling the truth about black men, you should be ashamed of yourselves and your parents should be ashamed that they had you. The Color Purple was garbage meant to appeal to the angry shea butter type of individuals who have repulsed any man from wanting to be with them, and this is their consolation prize for Hollywood to tell them, oh, they don't deserve to have you. Yeah, nobody deserves that. And this is something to remember about those divestors. They hate that they're black. They don't want to divest from black men, they want to divest from the black community. That's why they obsess over having a zaddy, and they go ballistic when you tell them that there's something wrong with wearing a weave, especially a blonde weave. To them, Barbie isn't a crass toy line. Barbie is a lifestyle option as they see it. They left reality behind a long time ago, and they want you to take a vacation from reality along with them. Well, judging by the failure of The Color Purple, not too many people are looking to take that excursion. I find it simply impossible to believe that there's any self-respecting black woman who is so starved to see images of black women anywhere, as if we don't see them anywhere at all, when actually we do, we see them frequently. Who is so starved for images of black women being sassy and being attitudinal that they actually think The Color Purple is something to aspire to and that it's something to anticipate? As Dr. John Henrik Clarke said, the white media is out to control image, and if they can control what you see, then they can control how you see yourself. And if they can control how you see yourself, they can control what you do about yourself. And for more than a few black people, the image that they've taken onto themselves has been to be an enemy of the black community. That's what the white media's conditioned them to see themselves as, and that's what they've taken upon themselves. As I've always told you, the white media doesn't see themselves as being in the business of entertainment. They see themselves as being in the business of mind control. And there's a lot of black people who ought to know better who have willingly decided to open up their minds and fill it with garbage. Because you never see the white media putting out images like this about white women. They don't try to glorify images of white women basically becoming an army to attack white men, specifically glorifying that the white woman's supposed to be fighting the white man. That the white man is the enemy, even though historically it was the white men who have been holding white women down. It's been the white men who told white women that they couldn't vote, told them what jobs they could have, control every aspect of their lives. And yet you don't have the white media putting out any white version of The Color Purple, because they don't want to sow those kind of seeds of division and dysfunction in their community, but they'll eagerly try to sow it in our own. And tragically, we've had a lot of black people in our community who have tried to help the white media to do it. These clowns trying to defend this box office bomb, they haven't even read Alice Walker's book, which shows good judgment in their case. All they know about The Color Purple is that it spat in the faces of black men, and apparently for them that's all they needed to know. These chumps need therapy, but they've never listened to anyone in their entire lives, so I guess it wouldn't do them much good. It's a puke-worthy shame that the white media is still propping up crap like The Color Purple at this late date, but it's a disgrace that you still have black people who cheerlead for it. Yes, these individuals are the bottom feeders, the dead enders of the gender war, but this mess the white media does is intentionally divisive and hurts the black community, and they push it on us as a way to sow dysfunction among us. Well, the white media in this case got exactly what they deserved. Warner Brothers stock dropped on this news, and David Zaslav is busy splaining. Right about now, I bet he's wishing that he had put out that Batgirl movie and canceled the Aquaman and Color Purple movies instead. Zaslav became something of a darling to the white right for a hot second because he was canceling the debuts of movies that had people of color in them. The white right was happy because they thought that this was the beginning of them showing that they can erase non-white people from movies and televisions. You see, these morons have been taking L's for so long, they've been humiliated and embarrassed for so long, that now for them canceling a comic book movie is a major win. That's how desperate they are for something they can point to as being a victory. Well, their parade didn't last too long because they were all predicting that the Barbie movie would be the mother of all box office bombs and that would be the end of any movie that didn't feature a white man as the lead, because to them this is just another front in their culture war, and that being the case, they're clearly losing the war. Over here in the real world, we all know what actually happened. Barbie didn't bomb at all. It went on to become the highest grossing movie of the year. And the white right was furious about it. They claimed that it was all a plot. That's what they're saying now. So David Zaslav went from being their buddy, he went from being their hero, to now David Zaslav went woke. The same pathetic talking points they always use, because now they're furious and scared. Fear is the source of most manifestations of anger. They're scared that the success of Barbie is going to mean more movies with women, or just anyone who isn't a white male, and they're such snowflakes they can't take it. This is your brain on stupid. It's very easy for Ben Shapiro to whine about Barbie being woke, or whatever, when he himself doesn't make any movies, and none of the pathetic vanity project flicks he posts online have done squat. These clowns don't make movies as a business. They simply make dire dreck to troll people online who they don't like. But when you do run a major studio, you can't afford to only make what some sawed-off right wingnut on the internet wants to see, because there's not enough of those idiots to make a movie a hit. After all, they'd have to leave their mother's basement in order to get to the multiplex. When you're trying to run a business, and that business has to make money, has to make hundreds of millions of dollars, you don't have the luxury of trying to appeal to loudmouths on the internet who only know how to do garbage takes on YouTube or post asinine trolling fodder on Twitter, X. So Aquaman flopped, Barbie ruled, and The Color Purple wound up in the red. But that's not to say this is the last we've seen of attempts like this. White supremacy has given its propaganda arm, the white media, billions of dollars to work with. So they can easily afford to lose $100 million or much more just for the sake of pushing their lies. This is not about one movie making money or even one studio, even a major one making money. Anti-black racism is a group sport. When 20th Century Fox sold its movie division to Disney, did that mean that there would be no more anti-black crap coming from the Fox movie banner? Of course not. So the white media is carrying out an organized media offense and trying to get black men and women to be at odds with each other. That's a huge part of their operation. Confusing the internal politics of their enemy is a crucial element of warfare, and they carpet bomb us with this propaganda. Now, the good news is we can shut them down simply by shutting off their TV programs and not watching their movies. The Color Purple failed because it deserved to fail. Anything that tries to divide black people, that is not something that should succeed. And anybody who looks at The Color Purple and gets green with envy about that garbage, that says more about you than it says about any individual in the black community that you want to run down. As the black community, we need and deserve material that honors us, material that magnifies us, material that shows and reinforces healthy group dynamics, not more of the same old men versus women dysfunction. That only serves white supremacy's interests. It doesn't serve our own. We are not trying to escape blackness. We're trying to embrace it. We're trying to magnify it. We're trying to empower it. So as far as we're concerned, it's only poetic justice, and predictable poetic justice at that The Color Purple wound up giving the people who loved it the blues. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Jacqueline Winter, Naji95, Andrew Lewis, Sakina Collins, and Jabari Robinson. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.